What if I told you? A barefoot 5-year-old girl, an orphan with nothing but a dream, stood in front of a moving presidential convoy and saved an entire nation. This is not a movie. This is not a legend. This is a real story from the heart of Bokhina Fasho. In a world obsessed with power, position, and noise, one little girl silenced it all, with nothing but her voice and a warning. Her name, hope. Her message, simple, terrifying, and true. Today, you're about to witness the moment when the future of a country was rewritten, not by generals or billionaires, but by a child who had every reason to stay silent and chose instead to speak. This is the day a 5-year-old girl saved President Ibrahy Trari from death. A story of fate, faith, and fearless courage. Stay until the end. Because what happens in the last 60 seconds may just change how you see leadership, warnings, and the power of one voice. It was supposed to be an ordinary day. A calm, beautiful morning in the heart of Bokhina Fasho. The sun rose like a golden whisper, brushing its light across the treetops. Birds filled the air with their early songs, and a gentle breeze danced through the leaves, the kind of morning that promises peace. Not history. Down a smooth, tree-lined road, a line of sleek black vehicles sliced through the dawn silence like shadows on a mission. This was not just any convoy. At its center rode the most powerful man in the country, President Ibrahy Trari. Inside his car, polished and bulletproof, the president sat poised in traditional wear, scanning through important state documents. His mind was focused. His tone was urgent. "We must reach the capital in 2 hours," he said to his assistant. "This meeting is for the future of our country. I cannot be late." "Yes, Your Excellency," the assistant replied, eyes forward. The driver pressed the pedal harder. Time was tight. Billions were at stake. Everything was perfect. The road was clear. The guards were alert. The journey smooth. No one could have predicted what was about to happen. Then from nowhere, a figure emerged. Small, silent, standing still. A child stepped out from the bushes and stood right in the center of the road. The guards gasped. "Hey, what is that?" One of them shouted. The tires screeched. Dust exploded into the air. The entire convoy came to a sudden, heart-stopping halt. The driver's hands trembled on the wheel. The guards rushed out, confused and ready for anything. But what they saw left them speechless. A little girl, no more than 5 years old. Her dress was torn. Her feet were bare, her hair was dusty, but her eyes burned with something rare, something strong. She was not lost. She was not afraid. She was standing there for a reason, and that reason would change everything. At first, no one moved. No one spoke. It was as if time had paused, frozen by the presence of someone far too small to command such power. The guards advanced cautiously, hands near their weapons, not out of fear, but confusion. It's a little girl," one of them muttered, blinking in disbelief. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old, alone, dirty, fragile. But she stood like a soldier. Her dress was ragged. Her skin was streaked with dust. Her feet bore no shoes. Yet there was a calmness about her, a stillness that didn't belong to a child. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She simply stared straight ahead, eyes locked on the president's. "Car, move out of the way," the driver yelled. "Do you want to die? This is the president's convoy." But the little girl didn't budge. In a voice small but steady, she said, "I need to see the president. It's urgent." The guards looked at each other, unsure of what to do. "Little one, move," one barked. "We don't have time for games. We must reach the capital in 2 hours." Still, she shook her head. "You will not pass here," she said quietly. "Please." The tension climbed. Who was this child? What could she possibly know? Inside the car, President Trari, annoyed by the delay, stepped out. His presence shifted the air. Dressed in authority, surrounded by power, he walked toward the strange scene. "What's going on here?" he asked, voice low and commanding. Then something happened that none of them expected. The girl pointed at him. "You," she said. "You're the one I'm looking for." The president blinked. "Me?" "Yes," she nodded. "You must not continue this journey. You must wait here for 2 hours." There was silence, and then laughter. "You want the president of a whole nation to stop me because you said so?" A guard mocked, but the girl didn't laugh. Her face remained still. "If you pass this road now," she said slowly, "you will not make it." And somehow, that didn't sound like a threat, it sounded like a warning. President Ibrahy Trari stood still, staring at the little girl who had just told him to delay a meeting that could shape the future of his country. She had no shoes, no title, no authority. And yet, she spoke like someone who had carried the weight of lifetimes. His guards chuckled nervously. "Sir, with respect, this could be a trap. What if your enemies sent her to delay you? What if this is all a setup?" Another added, "This is dangerous. Let's move before it's too late." The president clenched his jaw, torn between logic and something else. Something he couldn't explain. Something in the girl's voice, in her eyes, refused to leave his mind. She looked up at him again, her voice now trembling but still unshaken. "A goat doesn't run in the daytime for no reason. I am not crazy. I am not playing. Danger is on this road." President Trari turned away, frustrated. "This is madness. I've waited years for this meeting. I will not stop because of a child's dream." But as he stepped toward his car, her voice rose again, urgent, pleading. "I saw it," she called. "In my dream, a great fire, cars burning, people crying, and you, in the middle of it. If you go now, you won't come back." The guards moved toward her, ready to clear the way. But something made the president stop. He turned again and truly looked at her. Her little hands were shaking, her eyes wet with tears. But still, she stood tall, like a mountain refusing to fall. He stepped closer, his voice low. "Who are you?" "My name is Hope," she whispered. "I have no father, no mother. I sleep under the tree by the old well. But I saw this. I saw it, and I had to stop you." There was silence. No one laughed this time. The president's heart pounded in his chest. For the first time in a long time, he felt something greater than duty. Something closer to instinct, to truth. He looked at his men. "Cancel the journey," he said. "We wait 2 hours." And just like that, the convoy of a nation came to a halt because of a barefoot girl named Hope. The sun was now high in the sky, casting sharp light across the motionless convoy. Black vehicles lined the lonely road like sentinels, unmoving under the shade of tall trees. Inside his car, President Ibrahy Trari sat silent, his gaze fixed on the ticking clock on the dashboard. 30 minutes had passed, then 45. Time crawled like a wounded animal. His phone rang again. Another call. Another reminder of the stakes he was sacrificing. "Mr. President," his assistant said, voice tense. "It's the international business team again. They're losing patience." President Trari grabbed the phone. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was cold, clipped, impatient. "Your Excellency, if you're not here in the next 90 minutes, we'll assume you're not interested. This deal will go to another country." He exhaled sharply. "Please, I'm on my way. Just a slight delay." "You have 60 minutes left," the voice snapped before hanging up. The president's jaw tightened. Around him, the guards whispered nervously. One stepped forward. "Sir, this makes no sense. What if she's a decoy? What if someone's stalling you for an ambush?" Another said, "Let's move. She could be playing on your emotions. You are the president. You must lead, not follow." President Trari had heard enough. His patience was gone. He stormed out of the car and marched toward the girl, who now sat quietly on a stone, staring at the sky as if waiting for it to speak. "You!" he shouted. "I've had enough. I want to leave. I need to leave." Hope stood up slowly, calm and still. "Please, just wait." "No," he barked. "You're a child. You don't command a president. Who do you think you are?" Hope met his fury with stillness. Her voice was soft, but her words, they struck like thunder. Even a lion pauses when the antelope refuses. To run, silence, not even the birds dared to chirp. What does that mean? He asked, confused. Hope stepped forward, voice low but clear. You are the lion, powerful, proud. But danger does not always roar. Sometimes it walks quietly, like an antelope that doesn't run. Something shifted inside him. A chill crawled across his back. Then came the moment that sealed it all. A voice from the emergency hotline, shaking, urgent, terrified. Your Excellency, there's been a terrible accident, 40 minutes ahead, right on your route. The emergency team's voice crackled through the speaker like lightning splitting the sky. Sir, a petrol tanker lost control and exploded. The fire consumed over 40 vehicles, cars, buses, bikes. It happened about an hour ago. The same time you would have passed that section of the road. The entire convoy froze. Guards dropped their weapons in disbelief. The assistant sat down on the ground, unable to speak. President Trari slowly opened his car door. His legs were weak. His chest tightened. He looked at Hope. She hadn't moved. She still sat on the same stone, barefoot, still staring at the sky, as if she already knew. As if the moment had already played out in her heart long before the world caught up. He walked toward her, each step heavier than the last. His guards followed but said nothing. When he reached her, the president of an entire nation bent down on one knee. He looked into her eyes, those same unwavering eyes, and whispered, "You saved my life." Hope didn't smile. She simply said, "It wasn't me. It was the dream I was given." He shook his head. "You could have ignored it. You could have stayed in the bushes. But instead, you stood in front of moving cars. You stood in front of me, a man feared by many." She nodded gently. "I was afraid too, but I was more afraid of what would happen if I said nothing." The guards wiped tears from their eyes. The assistant whispered, "She's not just a girl. This is divine." President Trari took her small hand in his and stood. His voice was clear, certain. "From today, your name is not just Hope. You are my hope. The hope of Bokhina Fasho. The hope that saved her leader." And just like that, the road, once destined for death, became the place of rebirth. A silent little girl had stopped time and rewritten fate. The convoy moved again, slowly, reverently. But this time, Hope sat in the back seat beside the president, her hands folded, her head resting softly against the cushion. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Everyone knew. Hope had saved them all. By the time the presidential convoy reached the capital, something had changed. Not just in the road they traveled, but in the hearts of every soul aboard. Hope, the barefoot orphan who had stopped an entire government in its tracks, now sat beside President Ibrahy Trari like she belonged there. Because she did. As they entered the palace gates, the guards stood taller, the air felt lighter, and the staff gathered in awe. But when they saw the little girl holding the president's hand, they froze. Whispers ran through the corridors. No one asked questions, yet everyone knew something extraordinary had happened. Inside the grand hall, the president called an emergency meeting. Ministers, generals, advisors, and media staff filed in quickly. Some still held phones. Others expected a security briefing. What they got was something else entirely. "This is not politics," the president began. "This is not government. This is life and death." He told them everything. From the torn-dressed girl who stepped in front of his convoy, to her dream, to the explosion, and the moment he chose to listen. He paused, voice heavy. "If we had ignored her, I would not be standing here, none of us would." The room was silent, some cried openly, others bowed their heads. Even the most stoic among them had no words. Then he said the words that would echo across the nation. "She is no longer an orphan. She is my daughter now. From today she lives here, she will go to school, she will be loved, protected, and raised with honor." Hope stood beside him, still in her dusty dress, eyes wide. She had never been called daughter, never been embraced like this. But now she was not just a child, she was the child. The next day, President Traore stood before the cameras with hope in his arms. The country paused. TV screens lit up, radios buzzed, streets fell silent. He told her story again, every word, every warning, every parable. And then he said, "Sometimes the voice that saves a nation is the smallest one. Listen, before it's too late." From that day forward, across markets and villages, from classrooms to parliaments, people repeated her words. Even a lion pauses when the antelope refuses to run. A big man who ignores a small warning becomes the loudest cry in the graveyard. And the world remembered that true power doesn't always wear a crown. Sometimes it walks barefoot. Sometimes it's named hope. If you ever doubted that one person, one child, one voice could change the course of history, let hope remind you otherwise. She had no shoes, no home, no one to stand beside her. But she stood anyway. She stood for life. She stood for truth. She stood in the path of power and made it stop. And because she spoke, dozens of lives were saved. A president lived. A nation listened. This wasn't just a miracle. It was a message. Even a lion pauses when the antelope refuses to run. A big man who ignores a small warning becomes the loudest cry in the graveyard. If these words moved you, share them. Because someone you love might need to hear them today. And remember, no voice is too small. No warning is too weak. And sometimes, the strongest people in the world don't wear crowns. They wear dust, and they're 5 years old. If this story touched your heart, subscribe, like, and share it with the world. Hope didn't just save a president. She reminded us how to listen.